Well, I hope this is the first of the many episodes that I'm bringing you from the city of Bangalore. And the reason why I'm in Bangalore, I don't think I have to say that anymore. We had a cracking of a tournament that was hosted at the Kantirava Stadium, and I think every India game was an enjoyable experience, not just for me, for everyone who attended that game. And I'm sure because of the atmosphere in the stadium, everyone enjoyed watching it on their screens as well. Now, this is a Totally Indian Football Show. I'm your host, Siju, back again after a gap of a week. I think it's the first time that we missed the release of an episode, but I'm sure you have forgiven me for that because I was enjoying the SAFF Cup. Now, I have two amazing gentlemen here, and I'm sure most of you guys must have. There are already episodes out there, thanks to the folks at Injury Time and 420 Grams who always bring in live updates for us from what's happening in Indian football. But at the same time, though we are again looking at SAF Cup, I think I have the privilege of bringing two fresh voices and thoughts. As I was saying before the recording, that I'm happy that Coach FP could not make it on the 420 grams, so that he's here, and I think we've made it, kind of covered that up as he's joining us on the show. But you may hear references because I have heard both the episodes, and so I may take some pointers from there as well. But let me welcome. I think Coach FP always returns back, and I'm glad as always to have him on the show this time to talk about the matches as a coach. But let me introduce a fresh voice on the Total Indian Football Show who is making a debut. I've been wanting him to come, but he's had a bit of a break from footballing and watching games. But finally, happy to get him. So, Vishnu Prasad, thank you so much. Finally, you make it on the show.
Yeah, thank you so much for asking me on the show. As you said, I should have been on here a long time ago, but well, better late than never. That's what they say, right?
Yeah, and I think it's the best occasion to come, right? I mean, what a
Exactly.
cracker of a tournament. Coach FP, welcome to you as well. Thank you so much for joining.
Pleasure as always, and good to be here, fresh from a fantastic SAFF tournament in Bengaluru. I think everything came together: the weather, the football, the atmosphere, the fans, everything. I think the city delivered for the SAFF Championship, and I think that is a major factor in which the team as well delivered in the end. So all in all, it's a good experience. So looking forward to talk about all of that and dissecting it, whatever we can do during this show. So let's go.
Yeah, let's get right into it then. Before that, I must say congratulations to Coach FP, a new role at Odisha FC. We shall get you again probably when the season before the season begins to talk about that. But just wanted to put out there that congratulations.
Yeah, I mean it's been in the works, so it's good to be joining Sergio Lobera's staff. I'm excited. I think it's going to be a big learning experience, and hopefully, fingers crossed, we'll be in and about the championship and winning something at the end of the season. So I'm looking forward to that experience.
Great. So let's dive right into it, guys. The SAFF Championship 2023 hosted in Bangalore. And I think when the whole announcement was out there that Bangalore was going to host it, I think most of us who have been to Kantirava and experienced whatever little that you have experienced watching football there probably didn't have much of a doubt of people turning up, or it may, having a great atmosphere, because if you've watched BFC or the Indian national team before, you have got a bit of a taste of it. But here were teams where there was Pakistan, who we were playing after many years, and I think India Pakistan on Indian soil has not happened for a long time in any other sport. So having to see football back again, and I think I have never in my lifetime, or since the time I've been watching football, I've not watched the India Pakistan in a football game. So this was massive. I think as much as all of us were excited, I think a month before I was planning to already had planned this trip in my head. Now, starting with that, and I think what also added the flavor, right? We've all spoken about it, was just two big teams that were invited, who are out of the South, but who were invited, and they actually, kudos to them for accepting the invitation and coming all the way, Lebanon and Kuwait. But let's start with probably we were coming into this tournament after a win of the Intercontinental Cup. Right, a good show there in Odisha. The team has been playing been together since a long time. I think if March or April, if I'm not wrong, starting playing the Tri Nations in Imphal. So all of the factors led to that, and everyone was looking forward to one more trophy in the bag. But Vishnu, if I had to bring you first here, national team back in Bangalore. You're from Bangalore. What were your initial thoughts when this tournament was announced, and also to know that there were two teams invited?
I am now from Bangalore, but I've only been from Bangalore for a couple of years. That said, I was from Chennai, so I used to come down to Bangalore to watch football all the time. And I can say that I think I've seen at least 30, 40 games at the country now. And this is up there. The final was up there with one of the best atmospheres I've experienced in the stadium. The only challenger to that title would be the BFC semi-final in the year they reached the final of the Asian Cup. So Bangalore really turned up. There's no question about that. And I think there were a couple of factors. The first was that the way the tournament was scheduled, it was a slow build up in the sense you had crowds coming in right from the start because it was India Pakistan. And then you had India start the tournament with a big win over Pakistan, which sent home everybody happy. And then you had it was basically like climbing stairs. After Pakistan came Nepal, then Kuwait was a bit tougher, Lebanon a bit tougher, and then so it was something that had a sort of progression to it, and that I feel kind of captured Bangalore's interest. As in the first match, a lot of people turned up. Second match, a lot less people turned up. But at the same time, it was a healthy crowd. So that was a factor, and I also think that I also agree with you that the invitations extended to Lebanon and Kuwait, they actually made the tournament a lot more competitive because if you look at the past few years, once Afghanistan exited SAFF, it was becoming a bit too easy for India. And if you look at the history of the SAFF title, I think there's been once or twice where India has not made the final, and 9 out of 14 times that's like a pretty dominating record. So the presence of Lebanon and Kuwait added a bit of intrigue to the tournament, and the fact that India had to face both of them. That also, if it was a Lebanon Kuwait semi-final, I think it would not have had this sort of sweetness to it. The win that India had in the final. So we got here, we won the tournament, we defeated both of the teams to beat in the tournament, and that I guess sent home everybody happy after the tournament. Yeah.
Coach FP, your initial thoughts of the entirety, from the start till the finish, and when you were prepared. I mean, I think I remember when we were having an episode earlier while we were in Bombay. I think you mentioned that yes, you're looking forward to this and you're going to make a trip here. But I also remember that I think you mentioned that you'd only stay back probably for the group stages, and that's what you decided, unless India makes it. But the entire your experience, and you were sitting among the fans. So if you can just take us through that kind of aspect and share your thoughts.
Yeah, spot on. As Vishnu mentioned, the tournament just had a nice flow to it, right from the start. In fact, the first game being India Pakistan kind of set the tone. For me, it was kind of a little lopsided affair because I traveled alongside the Pakistan team to Bengaluru at 6 o'clock in the morning on match day. So, and by the time it was halftime, I was finished. I was like kind of just wanting to hit the bed. So I could imagine the Pakistan players playing that game. So, but all in all, it was a good game for us to start with. Second, the invitation of Lebanon and Kuwait. What impressed me a lot was the way we grafted throughout the entire tournament. If there's something that we need to take from this tournament is the fitness levels of our players. Playing in really hot conditions in Bhubaneswar, training out there and kind of pushing the limits, and then coming to Bengaluru in such good weather. I think everybody must have appreciated it, including Lebanon, coming here and playing in that weather. And they showed that in the group stages as well. So it kind of took the performance to another level. So, and the fact that we played Lebanon, the fact that we played Kuwait twice, and both the games were, entirely different. It was a truly satisfying experience for all the fans that came in. Whoever came in, I think, got their money's worth in each and every game. And like I said, the entire showcase event, you could say, the teams, the weather, the atmosphere at the Kantirava, which is by far the best I have witnessed so far. Like I mentioned, the last time I witnessed a really good atmosphere was India versus Bangladesh at the Salt Lake Stadium, and that was after a long time that we hosted a game on Indian soil, and that was full. So, and a full Salt Lake Stadium is always an atmosphere in itself. But the first game against Pakistan, I was in the VIP stand, so that was like ground level. And then I said, this is not happening. So I said I need to be with the West Block Blues at least, in the next game onwards, and that's what happened. So the next game onwards, I was in the West stand, and it's a whole different scenario altogether. You need to be there at least 90 minutes before kickoff to find your seat, the preferred seat that you need to be on, and then you need to be actively involved because they ask you to stand up, cheer, sing. If you don't, people stare at you wondering what the hell are you doing here. Are you come here to cheer the team, or are you come here to kind of just sit there and just watch? So it's an intimidating and also a very nice atmosphere to be in. So all that together kind of made this tournament a really good success overall. Excluding what, if you want to dissect how the team played, etc., etc., that's a whole different topic altogether. But the experience of being in this tournament, watching it as a fan, and I think even if you ask Lebanon and Kuwait, they wouldn't have expected such an atmosphere in India. So all in all, it was a good competition, a very successful competition, and the icing on the cake is that we won it, be it 2 penalty shootouts, but we came through. We got the job done, and that's what's been happening right through Igor Stimac's reign. In fact, we had this conversation earlier also, like how would you evaluate his performances, etc., etc. I said we wait till the AFC Cup, and then we decide, okay, what's happening. So based on this SAFF as well, there's no judgment as such, but you could definitely see that the team is on the upward trend with respect to its fitness levels. So in that sense, yes, it's a step forward in the right direction. And now it's how we can, get things together in preparation for the AFC Cup, which is Asian Cup, which is an entirely different tournament altogether. Yeah.
Yeah, I think now let's get to the talking of the point that we have to talk about is the on-field performance, right? Before we will get into talking about a few individual performances and few players, but let's talk about as a team, and as Vishnu mentioned, the progression that India had throughout, whether it's regards to he was pointing out regards to the people and turnout and stuff. But now let's talk about progression in terms of the performance on the pitch. Now Pakistan, starting with the game against Pakistan, we knew the issues that Pakistan team faced, in their travel time, in not having a great recovery, and just reaching a couple of hours back as a whole unit before the kickoff. Now, I mean, it's for anyone to guess or imagine that what if they would have turned up as expected in a way, proper preparation and stuff. But anyway, that those are the things that we cannot talk about because we don't know what would have happened then. But a 4-0 performance, I don't think anything less than a win was expected against a team. I mean, yes, it being Pakistan, but at the same time, that this team, we don't know what to expect. Right? I think I remember Coach FP also talking about it in an earlier episode that we don't know what to expect from this team because the country was banned for many years by FIFA, and then the players have been playing around, not probably together for a very long time, playing in different leagues. So, but at the same time, how do a 4-0 dominating performance, but did you somewhere at least were able to assess the Pakistani players despite all that they faced? Do you think you could see some kind of performance from their players and from their side as well? Vishnu, you can go first, and then Coach FP.
I think I remember thinking right after the match that this was not a particularly good performance by India, despite it being 4-0, because there was the potential for more goals. And I think for some reason I felt that the defenders were taking it a bit too easy, in the sense without even trying, the Pakistanis were creating. There was that one or two chances when they were just making a run and nobody was tracking them. So I was thinking in that first game, I was thinking, okay, fine, against Pakistan, this is okay, but I don't know if you put in this sort of a performance against Lebanon or Kuwait, how things will turn out. But yeah, with regards to Pakistan team, see, it's not only the fact that they are coming back after a ban of nearly, if I'm not wrong, almost 2 years. And before that, they had a 1 year ban. So basically, over the last 5 years, they sat out three. And it's not just that. And the leagues there, from what I know, the domestic league hasn't restarted yet. But whoever is playing in that Pakistani team, a lot of them are foreigners who basically did not know each other before this. They first went to Mauritius. They did not even know their teammates. They were playing together for the first time. So they're still discovering each other on the pitch. They're still getting used to each other. I don't know how successful that process will be, because in most of the games they were turning out with 6 or 7 foreigners, several players from Netherlands and England. So it was understandably not a very fluid performance. These guys are still figuring things out. I don't know if the way that Pakistan team schedules their matches, I don't know if they'll ever get used to each other, because now they'll go back and then for 6 months they don't see each other. So yeah, I think there's a lesson, because this is a very popular topic in Indian football, bringing in PIOs and bringing in players of Indian origin from England. There's a lesson right there that might not always be the best idea.
Yeah, Coach FP, you can add your thoughts into it.
Yeah, it's similar to what Vishnu has mentioned. It didn't seem like a traditional India-Pakistan rivalry. I didn't see that feistiness in them. Purely because I don't feel they knew what an India-Pakistan game is all about. So basically, they were technically good, by the way. They were technically really, really good players in that Pakistan team. And for the first 10 minutes, I remember they got about 2 or 3 corners, and they got the first header on each and every corner. And so I was thinking to myself, okay, it's game on. They've started really well. Our guys have been a little bit kind of, sloppy in the way they've started. But then the mistake by the goalkeeper, I think we got the rub of the green there. And after that, it was always going to be a one-sided result. But again, if you try to dissect our performance, right from that game to the end of the tournament, we still struggle to build up from the back, irrespective of whichever team we are playing against. If a team presses high against us, with in the terms of Kuwait or Lebanon, or if a team, even Nepal, or a team like Pakistan who was defending deep, irrespective of that, we struggle to play out from the back. But what we do well is that we recover the ball really well. So as soon as we lose the ball, there are at least 3 or 4 players immediately pressing the ball and winning it. So most of our chances that we've created have come in transition. Transition from a set piece, or transition from losing the ball and then winning it back again when there's space opened up. So I think that's been the theme of our performances throughout. And obviously, set pieces has been a strong point ever since Igor has taken over. So we've always relied on a set piece to, kind of break the deadlock or kind of get back in the game. And that has shown in this tournament as well. So if we can strengthen that area, if you see Kuwait, fantastically technically gifted players, but when they defended in set pieces, you could just see that, it's just waiting for India to score. Each and every set piece they were defended with a zonal defense, and you could see there was at least a 5 versus 2 on the penalty spot, and it was just a matter of putting the delivery in the right place for us to score. So if we can exploit those set piece situations even in the Asia Cup against bigger teams, teams that we can maybe physically be better against, then that's going to be a plus point for us as well. So the Pakistan game basically was a good start for us, just for us to ease into the SAFF Championship. After winning the Intercontinental Cup and traveling back and playing, the first game against Pakistan, it was a nice opener for us.
Right. I think the common point that both of you made was that though the scoreline read 4-0, everyone went back home happy because, yeah, you defeated Pakistan. But performance wise, it wasn't that great overall to talk about. Now, do you think that's the taste that we got against Nepal? Because they rattled us in the first half. Okay, we all thought Nepal would likely be 1-0 up in the first half because that's how well even Nepal performed. or rather we underperformed. It could be either. But how do you assess the first half of the game against Nepal? Now, as you both mentioned that overall the performance wasn't that great or up to the mark, it could be a lot of other factors, right? We also mentioned about them traveling from Bhubaneswar. It was a very short period of time for them to recover and then play a game, fresh new tournaments, all of those things. But what do you think caught us off against against the match in the Nepal game? Because as I said, we were all probably on our edges of our seat, and this was also a game. Yes, it may only have 10,000 crowd, but for me, if I had to pick, I mean, yes, apart from the finals, if I had to pick a game that I thoroughly enjoyed, maybe a little more than the Pakistan game, was the Nepal game, because we also had the Nepal away fans. And I think even Vishnu would agree. We were sitting in the press box, and the away stand was right next to us, and they were at it, right? So I think that kind of also created a atmosphere for the Nepalese team, and a familiar face that we know in Indian football, Vincenzo, who was the Nepal head coach. So how do you guys assess that first half, and then how different was India in the second half? Coach FP, you can take it, and then Vishnu can add in.
I think another theme, I think, for Nepal, Lebanon, and even the Kuwait game, and including the semi-final and final, we started very poorly. All the games, I think, in the first 15 minutes, we were kind of figuring out what needs to be done. How do we need to press? Do we need to press? Do we need to keep the ball or kick it long? The defining point for me was Nepal was on the front foot, and Gurpreet made an outstanding world-class save from a set piece. There was a set piece which rebounded to the top of the box, and the Nepal player volleyed it. Gurpreet just got low and saved that. That was an outstanding save. And I think in the next game as well against Lebanon, he made a save, or against Kuwait, I think, in the very one versus one against Lebanon in the next game. So that, I think, got us off the hook, to say. But again, it was always going to change. The one thing that we've noticed in this tournament is that the ability of the team to hold its ground when things are not going our way, kind of dig in deep and kind of at times ride our luck and get through it, and then kind of get that moment of kind of that spark in the game where we start to dominate games, or start to kind of get the momentum in our favor. It's difficult to prepare against a team like Nepal because you don't know what they're going to do. Whether are they going to defend deep? Are they going to press high? Whenever they did press high, we couldn't build up from the back, so we had to play out. And whenever they defended deep, we faced problems as far as, can we break them down? Their wingers, their number 9 were pretty good. They held the ball really well. I still remember the left winger had the better of Preetham. I think Preetham played the game. I think if I'm not sure, but he had the better of the right back many times. To cross the ball. Even Subhashish, I think, played. He didn't have a good game as well. So a lot of things, and this is another factor as well. Throughout the game, throughout the tournament, T-Mac didn't hesitate to make a lot of changes throughout. So maybe that could be a factor in maybe a slow start to games. But we ended the games really well, and we got the result in the end. So I think that in the Nepal game, it was good to see other players getting a chance to play as well. But through the tournament as it ended, you could figure out, okay, this could be his potential 15-20 players that he wants. Also keeping in mind the players that prominent players that have missed out, like Suresh, Manveer, Brandon. These kind of players have missed out. Sana. So that kind of also could play a part in the slow start that we had. But all in all, in the end, we came through it and we scored the goals that were needed.
Yeah. So yes, you said, I think Nepal was a fun game because the media box was right next to a very large section of the Nepal fans, the away fans over there. And I very distinctly remember the entire first half, the Indian fans were quiet, and they were the ones who were egging their team on, cheering on chances, and holding their head in their hands with each narrow miss. So Nepal clearly had quite a good game in the first half. But I think what impressed me with this Indian team is, and this is not just for the Nepal match, even in the Kuwait match, or be it the Lebanon match, is that even when things were going not that great, they did not stop being aggressive. They did not stop being physical, and they did not stop pressing. So that was I think one of the things I noticed was that towards the once the Indian goal went in, Nepal sort of gave up the match. You could tell that the match was done there, not just because the goal had went in, but you had a sense that they were done physically as well. Whereas India kept pressing when they were in a similar situation when Kuwait scored against us in the final. India did not give up. India, on the contrary, you had a very bad situation there. Kuwait scored and then Anwar Ali went off. And I know a lot of us in the media box were looking at each other and saying, yeah, this is it. But the reaction to that was amazing. The reaction to the Mehtab came in, slotted right in. The team was as aggressive as ever. They fought and fought until they had the equalizer. So again, just like Pakistan, I did not think that was a particularly good game for India. And I think if that goal hadn't gone in when it had gone in, they might not even have won that. But the point to be noted here is that even when things were not going their way, there was not a difference in their mentality. You could tell that they had a plan and they were sticking to it. They were being aggressive, they were being physical. And I think that's something that Stimach has instilled in this team. The spirit. He's known for that sort of a thing. Back when he was a player, and he was the one who went in and thumbed up his chest and got everybody's spirit up. So it looks like he's being able to do the same with this team also as a manager as well.
Now, the next game was against Kuwait. Before I get to talking about the game, we've already probably spoken a few things about the Kuwait game as well. We shall talk both the group stage and the final because you play the same team. You can address the fact that what's changed from the group stage game to the final when we played Kuwait, and how different of levels they were, because one was a group stage, so you address it that way, and the other was a cup final. But before coming to that, do you think, Coach FP, this is for you as a coach? Probably you would be better to answer this. Do you think, the planning of fixtures really matter? Because I was just thinking as we were talking, what if we played Kuwait first or maybe second? I'm not sure. I don't know why when I'm coming to it. I'm just saying that in terms of momentum, we came off a final, we won that trophy, we played Pakistan 4-0, clean sheet after clean sheet. Nepal, again, we won. Kuwait we knew would be a tougher fight, but even there we kind of got a draw. So how key probably does fixtures also kind of play into when you're preparing your team, when you're playing as a unit, and do you think that also kind of helped, or for India to also they had two matches to kind of progress, rather, okay, we learn from our mistakes and we kind of get better every game until we play the big game, which is Kuwait. So how would if you can probably address that and then take us through both the games that we approached Kuwait.
No, it definitely makes a difference, but there's a reason why in any major competition you have the rankings and then you have pots, and when you draw the fixtures, it's always the top team gets the easier run in. You get to play the bottommost team in the group, then the third, and then the toughest team, potentially a decider. But I think with Pakistan in the tournament, I think there was no way there was going to be any other game scheduled to be the first game of the tournament. That was a given. But if we had played Kuwait, for example, then there would be no excuse to kind of shake off the rust or kind of say that we've just arrived from Bhubaneswar. It would have been go at the first minute itself. And I think it also helped Kuwait to acclimatize to Indian conditions playing the third game against India. So they had a good first two games where they could, find their feet in Indian football and with the weather, etc., etc. So say that India would have played Kuwait and we would have lost the first game, for example, then it would have been we would have had no room for error against Nepal and Pakistan in any case. So that would have always taken the performance to another level, anyways. So I think the fixtures were nicely placed for India and Kuwait as well, because probably the top two teams in the tournament, judging what happened in the Intercontinental Cup as well. So the top teams in the tournament played the last game of the group to decide the winner. And in either game with Kuwait, it was the same. I think the only thing that changed was the Kuwait, I think, got better in the final. To be fair, they dominated both the games, and there was stark contrast in the semi-final and final because we make no doubts about it that we were probably the fittest team in the tournament. There was no other team that could keep up the intensity to what we could bring, especially maybe from minute 75 to 90 and then extra time. And it showed against Lebanon. Lebanon dominated or were at par maybe till 70 minutes, but after that, we were taking the game to Lebanon in the final stages. But we couldn't get the goal, and it went into penalties. On the flip side, Kuwait in the final stages managed to keep the ball, managed to pin us back. We barely created any chances in the final minutes, barring for about a spell of 5 minutes or 5 to 8 minutes where we created two or three good chances, to score. The Changte chance in the end, and after that in extra time as well, we had a couple of chances to score. But all in all, I think Kuwait were very very dominant possession wise. Technically, they were all over us, especially with their switch of play, etc. But we managed to hold. We managed to stay in, and even in the second game when we conceded the goal, I had a similar feeling to what Vishnu and you guys had in the media box. Is that okay? Now this could be heading towards a defeat or maybe a bad result for us. But we kind of held in, didn't play the best of football, but I still believe the goal came from a throw-in kind of a transition moment where I don't think Kuwait expected us to play that quick 1-2 pass in and around the penalty box, And another thing that I've been talking about a lot is Chetri playing this false nine position nowadays. He's been tending to drop a lot deeper, drag defenders with him, and then create the space for runners like Sahal. Thapa played a little bit deep, but he was there alongside Changte, who tapped the ball in. Players like Ashik to run forward, and a couple of goals or three goals that we've scored in this tournament have come through those kind of movements. Chetri dropping down, creating space for runners behind him, and then we create the chance to score. So that has been the theme for us going forward, because like Vishnu mentioned, we never stopped pressing high on goal kicks. We never slowed down the intensity. If this is going to be the way we are going to approach the bigger teams in the Asia Cup, it's going to be a fun game to watch. It's not going to be an India sitting back in our own half and waiting for things to happen. We have a plan in and around our penalty box, in and around their penalty box, and whatever happens in between. There's a plan, but the plan is being executed with a good amount of intensity and togetherness within the team. And it's a sustained pressure for not just 90 minutes, for 120 minutes. That is what is good to notice, because if we need to take the positives out of this tournament, we've won it, so there should be something that we've done really well. So I think one thing has been we've been at the opponents right from the first minute till the final whistle is blown. So if we can do that in the Kings Cup, in the Merdeka Cup, in the Asia Cup, we're going to be satisfied. As an Indian football fan or a coach, you're going to be satisfied that they have given everything on the pitch, whatever the result after that. So that has given us a lot of encouragement going forward now in preparation to the Asia Cup. The way the team has approached the game and has executed at least the defensive aspect of the game. Technically, on the ball, there's a lot of things to improve, but I think if we're going to manage to do the other things really well, maybe we can, it overshadows the limitations that we have when we are in possession.
Yeah, Vishnu, your thoughts on both the games against Kuwait?
I think the big, as coach rightly pointed out, Kuwait were the better team. But I think the big difference between the two performances was that in the first game, Kuwait trusted one of their best players of the tournament, Mubarak Al Fanini. He scored the two goals against Pakistan, and then I think Kuwait didn't play him. And I'm not sure, but I think the right back whose name escapes me right now, who ended up assisting Anwar's own goal, he also did not start. Whereas then he came back and he started in the final. So I think that made a difference to the performance. Obviously, when one of your best players downright from the tournament, who like you're missing him, then your levels are bound to go down. But yeah, I think as disappointing as it was how that match ended, because I think a lot of us thought that India were actually going to hold on. It brought back really traumatic memories of the last Asian Cup where we were that close to, actually getting out of the group, and then something like this happened. And so the goal was a bit hard to take, but at the same time, you have to look at a lot has. It's not a black and white picture here. A lot has happened in Kuwaiti football over the last 10 years, but at the end of the day, this is the team that when we last played beat us 6-1, 5-1, something on those lines 12 or 13 years ago. So it shows that obviously Kuwait football has gone back, but Indian football has come forward quite a bit. And as coach said, I think the best thing throughout this tournament was not only that, even under Constantine, even in the early games against the match, there were stages where India used to press really well, used to pin back the opponent, no matter who the opponent was. I remember we doing that against Qatar when we held them. I remember the pressing being really good in that, the physicality being really good in that game. But I think what we saw in SAFF was that they are now managing to hold it over sustained periods of time. They're managing to stick to the plan not only over 90 minutes but over 120 minutes, which is actually causing quite a bit of discomfort to your opponents, because they come in with the level of expectations. They come in equipped to deal with India over 90 minutes. But then once India steps up their intensity, they end up having to step up theirs, which means they their game plan is disrupted quite a bit. So one of my favorite sights from the tournament was both in the games against Lebanon and Kuwait. Once the match went into extra time, Kuwait and Lebanon, both of them who arguably had the better 90 minutes, they were the ones trying to play for the penalty shootouts instead of. They were the ones wasting time trying to slow the game down, while India was maintaining their intensity quite well. So that is not something that you see very often in Indian football. First of all, going into extra time is not something that you see very often in Indian football. But the the other team wasting time and trying to play for the penalties, while India was the one pressing and going for the winner. I think that was a very heartwarming sight, and that is testament to how well this team has been drilled and how much they've come in terms of sticking to that the pressing game over an extended period of time.
A final few thoughts. Now I think we'll move into the Lebanon game, and we've played them in the Intercontinental Cup as well, and they were also coming back into this. I think Lebanon has become a household name now. We'll play them again in the Kings Cup. But what kind of changed over there as well? Again, I think also that kind of, we were talking about progressions and how the teams were able to prepare themselves to play the next big team. I think a semi-final against Lebanon also helped us kind of sustain. Also, again, it went to round of penalties. Helped us also kind of sustain another game of 120 minutes plus the penalties against Kuwait. Right, that also kind of helped us, I feel. So, how did we approach the Lebanon team once again that we were playing back-to-back tournaments, and it was a semi-final. So, what do you have to say about that? I think Coach FP and then Vishnu can add in.
Yeah, it was a similar story throughout. Like Lebanon started the game really well. I still remember Gurpreet made a really good 1v1 save at the start, which kept us in the game. I think if that would have gone in, it would have been difficult for us to get back. But I think even Lebanon knew they couldn't sustain the intensity, because every time they got behind us, we were able to recover. And what impressed me a lot is what with the rotation of the players as well. Everybody that came in were at their best. They did their job. And in game, there was a similar rotation when it came to substitutions. Rohit for Thapa, Mahesh for say Udanta coming in for Changte. There was a nice flow of substitutions, and everybody coming in added a little bit more to the game. So as we played, as the game got on, we got stronger and stronger. Like I said, as opposed to the Kuwait game, towards the end of the 90 minutes and in the extra time, we were dominating Lebanon. But then it comes back to that question: we couldn't break down Lebanon, and there was no chance that we could break them down. We didn't create any clear-cut chances. We were struggling to kind of find the final pass in the final third or the cross, etc. But the fact that we kept if you would see any possession stat in the extra time and the last 15 minutes, I think we would have had more possession than Lebanon. So that's again credit to the fitness levels of the players and the mentality of the players to push on in the final stages as well. So and then again in the penalty shootout, what impressed me was that everybody was so confident going up for the penalties, and each and every penalty was kind of crisp. There was no hesitation in what they you could see there was no hesitation in what they wanted to do. And the fact that Sunil Chetri stepped up for the first penalty every time, so usually the bigger players always save themselves for the fifth penalty, assuming that it's going to be the winning penalty. But him stepping up and kind of setting the tone right away was good to watch, and Gurpreet was outstanding. You could always you could see the kind of body language change in the Lebanon players, seeing Gurpreet in goal. And if you observe both the goalkeepers in either game, you could say that we will have the advantage in the penalties with Gurpreet or even Amrinder, because both the goalkeepers of either Kuwait and Lebanon weren't their strongest players, throughout the tournament. And he did what he did best, was get that crucial save and force the miss in the second penalty as well. So overall, it was kind of, again, not a satisfying performance, but again a performance full of intensity, full of aggression, full of passion, that got us through the game and got us to the final. So I think we can accept that for now. And if we can do that to all the three teams in the Asia Cup and get 3 points, I think everyone would be very happy with that. Just to put that into perspective, if we can do that in the Asia Cup, then great. Even if we don't qualify, at least we haven't lost in the Asia Cup. That would be the takeaway.
I mean, I think everyone who heard that would have taken a pause and said, "Wow, Coach FP just gave us 3 points, barring gaining that we are going 1 point each against every team." But that would be something else, right? I think we would take that any other day than 5-0, 4-0 thrashing against the teams that we usually play. But Vishnu, before you add your thoughts into this game, I also want to ask, like, because Coach FP also mentioned the keepers, right, and the mentality of the keepers, because it's finally then it's them. When it goes down to the penalties, it's all them. It's right, and I think also even throughout the game, because the reason why we go into extra time and penalties because none of the teams could score. That means the keepers had a good game. But if you remember, Vishnu, in the post match, I think it was against the Lebanon coach. I think everyone asked. We saw a change in the keeper, right? And I think he mentioned that apparently the keeper who came in as a substitute for the penalty was a penalty specialist. But then, things go either ways. You don't know what happens on that given day. So, what do you think of that? And, probably you can address that as well, along with your points on the entire game against Lebanon.
I think more than him being a penalty specialist, I think it was a bit of a psychological ploy, because when you throw in somebody, you make it obvious to the at that stage of the game, you make it obvious to the other team that, look, I am bringing on a penalty specialist. So you're instantly giving your new goalkeeper a kind of aura. And this is not like a unfamiliar sight in international football. We had Van Hal doing that in the World Cup. I think he brought on Tim Krul, if I'm not wrong, and he won that shootout. Again, we had less successful examples of these. So more than somebody being a penalty specialist, obviously one person will be better at saving penalties than the other. But more than that, I think the biggest effect such a change will have is this psychological effect on the opposing team, because now they are looking at the new keeper like, okay, this guy actually might be really good. So you're in their minds now. So that's there. But yeah, regarding our goalkeepers, I think both of them. I think one thing that I want to point out is that both Gurpreet and Amrinder played their part in the shootout, because Gurpreet was saving penalties. If you noticed, Amrinder was like the conductor for the stadium. He
Yeah,
was telling the entire stadium when to
I think
keep quiet,
yeah,
when to boo, when to make a noise. So when Chetri was stepping up for his first penalty, I remember in the Lebanon game, a lot of people were cheering and whistling, and Amrinder was like, "Please calm down. Let's not disturb him. Let him think of where he wants to put it, and let him put it there." So I think both keepers play their part. Obviously, Gurpreet is always the stronger shot stopper, and you could tell that towards the end, the people who missed the penalties they were already looking intimidated a bit by Gurpreet when they were walking in. So yeah, when if it comes to penalties, especially on home turf, we have the advantage. And yeah, but then as coach said, one worrying aspect of both games was our inability to break the teams down, because I noticed in the Lebanon game, I think there was that one early chance that Sahal had, which should have been a goal. But apart from that, we did not really come close. We were pressing well, we were winning back the ball. And we were, whenever one of their players tried to make a run behind, we were tracking them well. We were defending well, no question about all of those. But very little was being done, even in terms of a counter attack. As in, they were trying to get one started, but nothing was coming off it. So I think that is one thing, that one area where Indian football has to really improve if we are to get to that next level. Like people say, now we are going. The target should be the top 15 teams in Asia, and then the top 10 teams in Asia. If you are going to get to that stage, just being good at certain things won't work. You have to be good at creating chances, and you have to be good at finishing them off. And in India, like if you want to talk about the bad points of the SAFF Cup, I think this is where it would be. Not only did we not create enough chances, when we had them, we were not finishing them, with the exception of Chetri. So yeah, that is one thing that we have to work on. But yeah, again, both games, whether it be Lebanon or Kuwait, once it got to the penalty shootout, you could tell that okay, this was only going to end one way, because for once the crowd was there. And India, in both games, the other team was the one that was high on ability, but India was the one, clearly the team that was high on confidence, and that is what matters the most in a penalty shootout. It matters on how much you believe you can get the ball in the net, and yeah, we had that. And another thing I also wanted to say was Chetri stepped up every time the first penalty. But what was extremely heartening to see was Anwar Ali stepping up to take the next one after he had an own goal cost India the points, like a win in the game before. So after that, stepping up, putting your neck on the lines, and then scoring that penalty, and that too when you are a central defender, I think that is quite heartening to see.
He may be a central defender, but Vishnu, trust me, he's every bit as good technically as any other outfield player, and he loves a set piece.
Yep,
Be
yep.
it a free kick or be it a penalty, he would be the first one to step up. Even if it's a corner kick, I don't think he would mind taking that as well. And the second thing I just want to add, the camaraderie in the camp has been so good. You know, given the length of the camp, given the time that CMAC has had to prepare them, not just physically but mentally, the boys look so much together, so much fresh. You could see that. The bench. You could see that in the bench. You could see that in the training sessions, whichever videos that they upload. You could see that in the game. Everybody's involved, even if they are not playing. That there's that kind of responsibility that I need to do my part to make sure that my team wins. My bit. So I think that has been also a big takeaway, that if we can have a good camp like this in the build up to the Asia Cup, we can create this sort of an atmosphere prior to that, which would help us raise that performance level at least 5 to 10%.
Now, since you mentioned the camp, and Stimatch has asked for a 4 week camp, right? But we all know that's the time when ISL will be going on, and considering ISL stakeholders have also considered the fact that the Asian Cup needs to have that gap, so they're starting the league almost around September, end of September. But do you think, Coach FP, yes, from a coach's point of view, and now that we've seen, and I think everyone, even on 420 grams, when I was hearing, everyone says that he's earned it, right? He deserves that camp because you've seen what he's done. But from all the stakeholders' point of view who are involved with the league, do you see at this point of time that could be a luxury that the coach is asking? Because then, or else, like, I think a point that you mentioned on from one of your comments on the 420 gram show is that if this needs to happen, everyone from the ISL and the national team and everyone needs to come together and work it out in that way, because at the end of the day, it is for the Indian football. So how do you see that going? I mean, do you see the ISL guys saying that instead of having a crammed up league, maybe probably extending it beyond to the regular March, April, so that we could also fit in the camp and the Asian Cup and then come back to the ISL. How do you see all of these going about?
Look, it's not rocket science in any sense of the word, and we do not need to copy anything that's happening anywhere in the world. All that, from my perspective, is that we have a little bit of common sense, and we try to do what's best for the team to prepare for the most biggest tournament that we will ever play in some time. You know, in so we are not going to be playing a bigger tournament, that is the World Cup, anytime soon, but our best bet is in the Asia Cup, to be playing regularly there. So as a nation, in order to progress as far as the national team is concerned, we need to do everything possible to make sure that they are prepared in the best possible way. Now, take for example, Igor is not the coach, another coach comes in and he says, okay, I don't require a camp. Okay, that's okay, then he requires 10 days to prepare a team, that's fine. But if a coach has already mentioned this in advance, one, has shown the benefits of what a long camp can do to the players, two, and secondly, the players themselves admit that having a long camp has helped them not just physically and tactically, but also mentally and psychologically throughout, in the preparation for such a big tournament, probably the biggest tournament that some of them will play in their careers. I think all it requires is for all the stakeholders to come together and plan that in a nice way. It's no one needs to be compensated, the ISL or any other tournament that comes within. If it can be planned in the right way, I'm sure each and every coach in the ISL would want to know what the plan is from day one, so that they can plan accordingly. But if this happens abruptly, then everyone's taken aback, because preparation is also key for clubs as well. So now everybody knows there's going to be a gap in January. So I'm sure at this point of time, each and every coach has already planned for that. But the earlier it can be announced that yes, this is going to be the length of the camp for the Indian national team, the better it will be for the ISL teams to prepare for the tournament and the organizers themselves. So, and judging by the way they've announced what's going to happen, I think they've already made a decision as to how the season is going to unfurl. And I think it's going to be very difficult for him to get the 4 weeks that he wants. So then it's up to the players to kind of step up and kind of prove that at least we can do that in a 2 week period as well. That's there's not going to be any choice after that. But I believe that, considering that we are a developing nation, considering that Indian football has been on the up for the last few years, I think we should do everything possible to make sure that the head coach gets what he needs and the players get what they need ahead of the biggest tournament that they will play in some time.
Vishnu, how key is this going to be? Like, for example, I mean, in terms of how many more days, right? We don't know. We can all speculate on what's going to happen and everything. But whatever days that they're going to get together, how much of a difference and what key is going to play? Because we are playing three big teams, in considering the lead up in the Asian Cup. So, how important and crucial would this particular camp be for how many ever days that would be?
I think this is a very seasonal demand in Indian football. Every coach, even for the last Asian Cup, I remember Stephen Constantine was asking for a long camp, and I think he got a 10-day camp with the probables, and then a 10 days with the final squad that he announced. So overall, he got 20 days with the players. But I think where Stimat stands apart is that with these, whatever happened in June, he's actually shown what he can do if he's given what he's asked. Like he has shown the kind of improvement that he can make when he's given a month with the players or 4 weeks, whatever he's asking for. So from that perspective, I think there is a very strong argument for Match to be given what he wants, because now he can very clearly say, "Look, I did that. So now I can. If you want to repeat that the same thing, you have to give me what I'm asking for." And it's not. To be honest, there are again a lot of factors in play. A lot of changes will have to be made. But see, at the end of the day, it's not impossible to have a month's break. It's not that hard. I mean, obviously, from my perspective, it might not look that hard. I'm sure there are a lot of things to figure out. There are a lot of teams have to adjust. The organizers have to adjust. Broadcast schedules will have to be taken into account. All these things are there. But again, this is the biggest, the one big thing that we have to prepare for. After this, it's again another 4 years. We have to wait till Saudi Arabia before 2027 Saudi Arabia before we play a similar tournament. Because let's face it, World Cup is not a realistic prospect right now, and it won't be a realistic prospect for a while. So it's once in 4 years. Why not give the coach what he wants? He's already shown what he can do if he's given what he wants. So let's just back him, is what I say. But then again, in the end, it's up to the who's who of Indian football, the decision makers, to see what can be done. I hope Stimac gets what the time he wants. But will he get that? I don't know. I'm not that confident. This is Indian football we are talking about. So
Just to add, our game is based on our physical performance, our physical levels. That's the basis of our game. And then we kind of add technical and tactical and set pieces on top of that. So if we are not going to have that intensity and sustainability in our physical play, and this is not, it's nothing to do with the ISL clubs. Every coach, every club will have their own fitness standards, their own way of preparing players physically, technically, etc. But there's no substitute to a proper camp based on your philosophy of play. So each and every ISL team will have their own philosophy and will train the players accordingly. And national team is a total different way of playing football and a total different level of playing football. So in order to prepare for that and physically, technically, mentally prepare for that, we will require that time, and especially after seeing the performances in the Intercontinental and the SAFF Championship. So I hope he gets as much as he can, or as close to time, that much time that he has asked for. And that would leave no stone unturned to say then later on, okay, we weren't given, because then situation should not turn ugly at the end of the day, kind of saying that, okay, we didn't perform well because we didn't get the camp. That is also not right, but it can be worked. I think if all the stakeholders sit together and kind of brainstorm it, we should be able to find a solution to that.
Yeah, the point I was adding when Vishnu mentions Indian football, so we don't know what to expect. It's like, this could be the broadcaster's call as well, because both the platforms that kind of stream or broadcast these games are. I mean, whether we like it or not, we are competing against the biggest sport, that's cricket, right? So that could also be a talking point when people and whoever the stakeholders involved in this discussion. But we will leave that worry and tension to the ones who would want to take the decision. Before I conclude, I know we've gone overboard with this, but hey, it's a SAFF Cup and it deserves to be spoken of. Now, when I was writing down a few, I mean, the players standing out, kind of a performance, and for me personally, or the people who are talking about, I realized that I've written the entire team. you know I was just going through the team list and the number of players I've mentioned. I'm like, oh, I have actually put in the entire, I think, the playing 11, or rather there are 11 players on my the piece of paper as well. So I will not, I mean, if we speak for each of the player, I think we'll sit here for another 1 hour. But Vishnu, I'll start with you, with asking you to pick your players that impressed you the most, and what would you expect from them going ahead as well, whether at club level or when they play for the national team thereafter.
my downright favorite player of the tournament was Anwar Ali. I think, barring that own goal, I think he was in most of the games just a joy to watch. And every time I see him play like that, I think of, oh my God, where would he have been right now if he had in that period where he went through a lot of things and could not get regular football? Where would he have been if not for that? But yeah, downright that he's. I think people talk about finding the next Sunil Chetri, but we've had somebody in defense who has the potential to be what Sunil Chetri was for India in attack. So Anwar Ali, definitely, I was impressed with Jixon. I think he brought his physicality to the game a lot. He harried opponents who, in most, even in 5 or 6 years ago, these are the opponents who would have kind of dominated us physically in midfield. But he went in there and he made a good difference. I think this was something of a breakout tournament for him, because I think before this June, he was not looking like he would start the games when the likes of Apoy and all were back, Suresh. But now I think Stimatch will have to think a lot before deciding who am I going to start in midfield when India has a full strike lineup available. And I want to obviously the people like Ashik and Sahal, Changte, all these people have had good moments, but I wouldn't say they impressed me throughout the tournament, because they had their good points and the bad. And the fact that we're still dependent on Chetri to top score in the tournament says a lot about. But again, as you said, they've done a lot of good things. So if you're looking solely at the good things and say, hey, look, they've progressed in this department, those areas are definitely there. But yeah, so these two players would be the ones I would want to single out.
Coach FP, your list of players that impressed you the most.
So I have a little different take on this. I know there is a lot. I know we expect a lot of things out of the regular players in the team. There are a lot of players that now have set a standard for the national team and are maintaining it week in week out whenever they play. So I'll keep them aside. So nothing to do with them. There's and even Anwar Ali, when he finally came back and made his debut in the Indian Super League, I tweeted that the best centre back in Indian football has finally entered the Indian Super League. So that just says how highly I rate him. So I'm going to even leave him aside because I know that's what he's capable of. So the first player that impressed me in the defense was, I think, Nikhil Pujari. For me, being a winger, or being a former winger, for him to transition into a defender first of all and do the defensive job so well has for me given he's given Stimac a big problem now as to who do I play at right back. And the advantage of Nikhil is his intensity. He doesn't stop working hard throughout the 90 minutes. And when we reach that final third, he has that little bit of creativity, being a former winger, to find that final pass or find a cross, or beat the player 1v1. So that he adds a little bit of that creativity to the right back role for me. And Igor and Luca, his strength and conditioning coach, has always stressed on increasing the muscle mass of the players as they work with them. And I think Nikhil Pujari is that one player who if he keeps working with the national team and following the program that is given to him by the national team SNC throughout his ISL season, and he increases that muscle mass and strength, he's only going to get better in that position because he suits the game perfectly. Second, I would like to mention Mahesh. I think he's been outstanding for the national team ever since he's joined the national team. And why I like him is because whenever he plays, he very rarely loses the ball. One, he's creative. Two, and he always has an end product to his game. As compared to any of the players that have played in attacking positions for us, be it Ashik, be it Changte, be it Sahal, be it Udanta, he is the one with the most end product to his game. There's always a cross, there's always an assist, there's always a shot, and eventually he got his goal as well. So in and around the penalty area, we need players like him who can guarantee you that kind of end product. That is what I like about him. He works really hard, and I think he's another player who, if he's with the national team for a longer period of time, is only going to get better physically, and that's going to improve his game further on. I think these two players for me were the standout. Everybody else were good, yes, but a little bit inconsistent. Jackson as well, I expect him to make that number 6 role his, because he's one of the only players in the team who can do the defensive role as well as the box-to-box role to perfection. There was a moment in the Kuwait final where he kind of brushed off 3 Kuwait players to keep the ball. I don't think any other player in the team will be able to do that, against opposition of that quality. So I think Mahesh and Nikhil Pujari for me were the outstanding players in this tournament, which would I definitely give Igor a good problem to solve. Come when the other players in their position are fit and firing, to make that first 11.
Yeah, I think, and I mean, there's something that we've seen throughout the tournament is that we are also talking about Coach Igor trying to find his playing 11, right? He's also been trying a lot of combinations with the players that he has. But even when we mentioned the players that are sitting out for the tournament, when I put down those names, like players like Apuya, Bipin, Roshan, Sana, Manveer, and I'm like, wow, that's a good problem for a coach to have. While that these guys were out, unfortunately there were other players who stepped up. So when these guys come back, it's for them to pull up their socks now, because what we see ahead is going to be club football for some time at least. And I think that's where the choice would come up on who's going to be consistent, and also a major factor is going to be who's going to be injury free. Right, I think it's going to be a lot of action back to back. I think this is the probably the only season, at least from the time I've been following, that I don't think we've yet gone into an off season, because club football is done and the national team is playing right one after the other, and again we start with club football. So I think all in all, whether when we talk about camps as well, I mean, more number of matches is what we expect, right? So I know that we've not spoken about one person, about of when he stood on the touchline and he took the reign because of Coach Igor being red carded. And I think we from the press never got Igor for a post match press conference, thanks to his antics on the pitch, or rather on the touchline. But I think what we could see was someone like Mahesh step up, and for those who've seen him play, always rate him high as a player, as a defender. I think that's one thing I would want to highlight. I think even when Vishnu was there, when Sandesh Jingan spoke about it, that having Mahesh or having under a camp with Mahesh has really helped our defensive line, and I think there's not much of a credit that goes to Mahesh Gowli, because he was like, if you're talking about the Sandesh Jingans, if you're talking about Anwar Ali's, it's because of this man, Mahesh, who they've also got a lot of time to spend under him. And if you were in Bangalore and if you got a chance to see them at training, some training glimpses also, you would always see this man out there. Setting up the field and being there, man of less words. I think we'll have an episode. I'm not sure if I can get him, because he literally is man of less words. But hopefully, probably with Coach FP and some others who've actually played along side him, who can speak a little bit more about him, we can have an episode on him, because I think he deserves it. Maybe final thoughts on Mahesh Gowli, and I think we saw him up there, and I think Coach, you also mentioned about seeing him kind of in an aggressive way as well. Coach, your thoughts, because you know him very closely and you've also seen him very closely. So probably final thoughts on that, and then we'll take off from there.
First of all, I was so happy for him that he got the opportunity to be there on the touchline, and it ended in such a beautiful way in winning the SAFF Championship. And judging him, I don't want to judge him, but having worked with him as a coach for the Indian Arrows, because I still remember when Matos left the team and I was the head coach for the Cotif tournament in Spain. I was given the option of a couple of coaches, but as soon as his name popped up, I had no doubt in my mind that I want him on the team, because I know the value that he adds to the team, and it's all about striking a right relationship. And I think he's found that niche with Igor, as to how much influence he can have on the team. And I think that trust has now been built between him and Igor, and even the SNC, as to how to take this team forward. And with Mahesh, he's so good at reading the game. He's so good at pointing out even the minimum, the basic aspects of the game. So even players like Sandesh, like Anwar has worked under him for quite some time now. Mehta, basics of just body positioning with respect to the ball and the goal. He's pinpoint. He never misses a thing. So even in training, even in a small rondo, he will tell you exactly what he needs. And a funny thing was, I even messaged him that this is the first time I saw him animated. I have never seen him animated. He was like gearing up the crowd and getting at the referees. I've never seen Mahesh in this kind of a mood. So maybe that touchline kind of gets to you at times, and the emotion and the adrenaline rush also gets to you, to the best of people, to the most calmest of people. But I couldn't be more happy for a person who's very valuable for Indian football. And I think the more we can get out of him, the better we can get the national team to move forward, and not just defensively, in an overall aspect, whether it's physical, technical, mental, nutritional. He has the answer to so many questions that Indian players are looking for, that it's a pleasure to work with him and kind of brainstorm him and get as much information as possible, and take your career to that next level, because he's that kind of a coach that if you work with him, you're definitely going to improve in every aspect of your game. So it was nice to see him, and I was so happy for him, and congratulated him as well on lifting the trophy.
Well, great. I think, I mean, when we look at it overall, overall for people to follow football or people who take up the and back the team, and if you're just a bystander or just watching someone, a passerby and you want to follow it, I think these results do matter at the end of the day. How much ever we kind of dissect the performance and how much ever, because we've seen them since day one. We are following up their progress. So yes, we may still find saying that okay, they lack here and they lack there, but I think results like these, back-to-back trophies and wins, do get going the people. So we also saw the number of people that tweeted about it, whether it be ministers and be it anyone else. They just on tweets and wishing the Indian football team. So I think overall, good on that part. But yes, as people who follow the sport, we always want to see more of it. And I think if I have to take away intensity, fitness, level of fight and aggression, that's where we've scored high. A few things lacking, but hopefully in the run up and as we get closer to the Asian Cup, to the big tournament that's coming up, we will lessen the gap of that things that we lack as well. Now, on that note, thanks to Bengaluru, thanks to Kantiraba, thanks to everyone who turned up, because I think as journalists, as people who work behind the scenes, and also coaches, players, everyone, we really had a great time, right? I think especially the ones who live outside of Bangalore. So thank you so much, and hopefully you guys, I mean, turn up for every game, whether it be national team or your foot clubs. Coach FP and Vishnu, thank you so much for doing this and almost spending an hour and close to, I think, 20 minutes or 15 minutes. Thank you so much for your time and for your valuable insights.
Thank you for having us on here.
Thank you. Pleasure.
Great. To all the ones who are listening to us, yes, we rarely put out episodes that go over an hour, but this is one of those episodes because it's special and it's been crazy, right? I think, like I said, we can keep talking about a lot of more other factors, but we still kept it short for you. So hopefully you enjoy this one as well. And yes, take in all the moments and keep reliving. I think this particular chapter, it will take some time to completely fade away from our memories because it was a good one indeed. Thank you once again for all the lovely listeners. We are the Totally Indian Football Show, available on all the audio platforms. To listen in, share your feedback, follow and subscribe to us. Thank you once again to Coach FP and Vishnu and to everyone who's following us. This is me, Siju, signing off. See you.